Hello, everybody. Jesse Schreck here with Missions Incorporated, the podcast of Practical Missions Cohort, located in the country of Italy, where we are doing evangelism, disciple-making, church planting, biblical missions. And today we are in the United States, carrying on our Q&A series while we're on the road here, currently in a car, actually, as we record this episode. The question that we have for today, though, is you speak a lot about the piazza in your updates. What is a piazza, and what role does that play in the missions work that you do in the country of Italy? So what is a piazza, and what role does it play in the work of the ministry there in the country of Italy? All right, this is a good question, and I do understand it's probably one of those things you can take for granted. Piazza is such a common thing over in the country of Italy, and we talk about piazza all the time, but maybe you don't even know what the word piazza means, right? So good question. This one came in during a Wednesday evening worship service when we had a little Q&A there at Gateway Baptist Church in Long Island. So yeah, the piazza in short is the Italian word for plaza, or we could say maybe town square. It's the central spot of every town and village in the country of Italy. And as I think about the piazza and how an American may or may not be able to understand exactly what that is, I do say this, though. When I do come back to the States, especially those first few weeks when we're here to visit and so on, I miss the piazza. I feel almost like a fish outside of the water tank, outside of the water bowl, or outside of the water, right? Because there's no central spot, it seems, to any of the towns or even cities, for the most part, here in the U.S. Our towns are just not structured in the same way that the towns in the old country of Italy are. So every little town, every little village has a central spot, a middle location, a common meeting place. No cars pass through there. It's off limits to drive through there, except for if you're a police car, maybe you're allowed to go through for certain events. Everybody is on foot. Some piazzas you can't even go through on a bicycle, right? It's just totally blocked off. It's an old historic section of the town, but it's also where all the key shops are. At least once a week, there's the open-air market that brings in all the food and cheese and little household supplies, different things that you might need for all the people who live in that area of town and people outside to come in to that central spot where they can get fish, cheese, meat, fruits, vegetables, clothing, whatever you can imagine. So they have those open-air markets there in the piazza. It's just this central spot, and it's also where all the stores are, numerous coffee bars, where you go to have your espresso shots, your cappuccino, whatever it is, and a brioche in the morning, or to meet up with somebody in the afternoon to have a coffee and get together. You sit down in the piazza. Many people, before lunch and before dinner, they'll have their aperitivo, and they'll get together with a friend or two and have a wine. And because wine over there is like the price of water here in the States, it's unbelievably cheap, and they love wine, so they'll get together in the piazza for that. The events are held in the piazza. Even concerts are held in the piazza. It's a central spot of every little town and village. And ice cream, gelato, you get that, you walk around and you just hang loose. The Italian also has this mentality, something that they call the dolce far niente, the sweet doing of nothing, where they actually just do hang out quite often. They're not rush to go do work as much as maybe an American is. They're less productive in that sense, but they're actively more interested in actual hangout time and things like this. So the piazza fits in perfectly to their lifestyle, where there's that central spot. You go, you meet up with people there, you get things there, you hang out there, right? But there's a central spot to every town, so you always know where you are. When you're not in the piazza, you know which side of the piazza you're on, and depending on what part of the town you are. Some of the larger towns have numerous little piazzas then, right? But it's very helpful for meeting up and for doing things like that. So when I'm here in the States, as I mentioned already, not to mumble on here, but there isn't that idea. There isn't that mentality. Everywhere you go here in the States, you pretty much have to go with a car, and you park there, and you get out and you walk to your destination. But even the downtown area of larger cities, still cars are passing by all over the place. You have to dodge traffic. So it's just a totally different thing. It doesn't really exist, as far as I know, here in the States, this idea of a piazza. So in short, what is a piazza? That's what a piazza is, if you can imagine that. Just this old central spot to every little town and village where people gather, kids hang out, parents, old people, whatever. Everyone goes there at some time throughout the week. Now, how is that central or part of the ministry is another question, and that's an interesting one because it does have a role as well, I think, in the ministry, because that'll be the place that we go to predominantly when we want to hand out tracts, and strike up conversations with people and talk with them, right? It's in the piazza where everybody's gathering. You can just pick a corner and people are passing by and strike up conversations, talk with folks. When we have people come on short-term evangelism teams in the summer and we do mimes in the piazza or dramas, probably it's more cool to call it a mime, I think, even though it's not technically a mime, but you're acting things out and there's music, there's no words. It's kind of like a drama or a mime, somewhere in between, but it draws in a crowd of all the people just doing their thing, hanging out, draws them in together, and then you present the gospel, strike up conversations, and invite them to converse, give everybody tracts. It's great for that as well, that aspect of the ministry, the evangelism, going to where the people are and where you can find people. Another great thing is when we do English as a second language courses or conversational classes and things like this, to just be a blessing to the people tangibly, to make friends with them, to point them to Jesus Christ, and let them know they can have friends who are Christians and they can get questions of theirs answered if they want. All those kind of things when we do English, so you do the course, you get to know them, etc. And then what happens with the piazza situation is when you're out and about doing your stuff or hosting a team and you're evangelizing, whatever it might be, you're constantly then bumping into people you know because everybody is going through the piazza at one point or another. Really, really nice feature for the ministry in that regard as well. And in addition, I would say when you're following up with people who want to know more about the gospel, they contact you, they want to meet up, a great place to first meet is in the public square, in the piazza, at a coffee bar. You can sit down under a big umbrella, enjoy an espresso, get to know each other, talk, let your families meet if it's a family meeting up with you. Those kind of things are also very beneficial to the ministry as well. So, what is a piazza and how does that affect ministry? Those are the things that come to mind. It's actually quite a central thing, and it's a very wonderful thing for the sake of the gospel in Italy. Because it's the perfect platform for evangelizing folks, making disciples, reaching people right where they are. It makes it much easier to go to that common meeting ground to interact with folks. And in a certain sense, it's almost like the piazza in some ways can almost be like we read in Acts chapter 17 in Athens, where the people would just do nothing else but sit around and talk and reason and consider new ideas and philosophize, use philosophy and just reason and talk and all this kind of stuff. The Italian also likes to sit around and talk. And if you can get yourself in there and you're among the people, you can also have those great kind of conversations all in that open space there as well. So that's it for our short episode today, missionary question and answer. At the close of this episode, just want to remind you, if you have a question of your own related to missions in Italy, missionary life, anything like that, feel free to send us an email at info@practicalmissions.org. Join the Italian cohort where you can send us questions casually there as well. Or you can even go to our website, practicalmissions.org, where we have a dedicated page for the Ask a Missionary series. And there's even a way you could leave us a voice message there, which we could then play your question if you wanted and give it an answer on another episode of the podcast. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for your prayers and support in the ministry to the Italian people. And until the next time, God bless and ciao, ciao.